Hola familia, welcome back to the Chisme with Cari and Jess. First of all, I just want to say this weekend was our very own Karina's birthday. Woo! Happy birthday! I got you. Forever 21. Ahí nos quedamos, pues. Yeah, so happy birthday, friend. I'm so thankful for you.
Thank you.
So today we actually have something a little bit different. We got a request.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody wrote to us, and I'm not going to say their name because obvio. And it reads like this: Karina and Jessica, please talk about the relationships and how sometimes partners aren't ready for full commitment. They break up and then you go on and marry someone else. For example, I was in a relationship with my boyfriend for 6 years. I was ready for marriage and to have children and start our family together. But he wasn't. After I figured out that he wasn't going to give me what I wanted, we decided to break up. A few months later, I found out that he starts seeing someone else, marries her, and is now expecting a baby with her. Why do men do this? Ouch.
Well,
oh my God.
Why do people in general do this?
People.
Because women,
sides.
women do this as well.
Yeah.
That's
Woo-hoo, that's
tough.
That sucks, man.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen both sides of the story, especially like let's start with the women, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the time
it's the women who are ready for the commitment.
Who want the commitment, right? Because the men can go out and have their cake and eat it too. Because women want it so bad. We're willing to dish it out without that commitment, thinking like, if I give it to him in advance, right, the whole commitment, he's going to see what he's going to get the preview, and then he's going to want it. But it doesn't work like that.
Right.
It doesn't, unfortunately. It does not.
Yeah. I find it interesting that we actually got that request or that comment because there's a few very close women in my life who actually have gone through this.
Yeah.
And one of them, it happened a few years back, and she lived with the guy.
Yeah.
They were together, I want to say like 7, maybe 8 years, something like that. She was ready for commitment. She was like, this was the person that she wanted to spend her entire life with. Yeah. And he kept, I guess, leading her on. He would, do everything that she wanted him to. They were, obviously neither of them had kids. So they were both like, single. They didn't have any prior like commitments or anything like that. And they lived together. And after so many years, she wanted to start having kids with him. But he just did not want to commit. He didn't want to commit. He was like, I'm not ready for it. I don't want to have children
with you.
With her precisely. Well, at the time, we didn't know it was with her precisely. We just all thought, okay, he's not ready. He's not ready for it. He's not ready for commitment.
And it's confusing because they're still there.
Yeah.
They're still doing
it's not
enough.
Like they leave. Yeah, they do. They give you just enough to just like keep you
and make you think.
They like dangle the carrot to give you just enough to get you to stay.
So messed up.
So time goes on, and it gets almost like to the end of the relationship, and they break up. She wanted to have kids. She wanted to get married. He just wasn't ready, quote unquote, and. So, same exact scenario. Few months later, we find out he starts like dating somebody else. And then a couple months later, we find out that he married this next person that he met. And then we find out that this guy has got her pregnant and now they're going to have a baby.
Oh, my gosh.
And my the person that I knew, she was devastated. She was like,
what the heck?
Why didn't he want that with me?
Right.
Why couldn't he give me that?
And that's the thing. That's the thing that we women start thinking like, what's wrong with me? Am I not good enough? Like what was it that you couldn't do that for me?
Yeah.
Like, you don't see it as it's a them problem, and they just weren't for me. Like, we can't separate that. We automatically think, I gave you all these years, and then
nothing.
Like, I pretty much fixed you for the next person.
That is exactly what I thought, what I think happened.
Yeah.
She pretty much, like, prepped him, fixed whatever he needed fixing.
Right.
She basically gave this other girl, like, the guy,
man.
A ready-to-go man. Like,
a ready man. A Build-A-Bear.
Yeah.
She built him.
Yeah.
And you know what? That is actually something that I see we women, I say we because I'm a woman, I can't throw everybody under the bus, but we do that. We prep men for the next one.
Right.
And then we get mad at ourselves, but really it's our fault. Like, we need to take responsibility. We're giving too much without boundaries, without expectations, right? We're not putting it up front like, okay, all cards on the table. What do you want? What do I want? Am I for you or not, right? Before you get all tangled, right? We instead think, oh, it's fine. He'll change his mind, or I'll change my will, whatever the case we think we want. And then we invest so many years, realize it's not going to happen. Ya metimos la pata. We're too deep into it. We're like, might as well see it through, because we women are like committed, right? We got to see things through. And they're like, well, she gives me, like, I'm happy.
Why
She's
buy
committed.
the cow if she gives me the milk?
Exactly.
For free.
For free. Yeah, we don't put it in a way where they're like, man, I don't really have her. I need to lock it up.
Right.
Like, we don't keep the chase going. We just make it too easy for them not to need to commit.
Correct.
Right? And then the next woman that he does come across, he's already mentally there because he already was mentally prepared by that other
he knew
woman.
what to expect.
He knew exactly. And then that woman does do those things, and he's like, oh, I'm ready, because it's fresh. It's a fresh slate.
Yeah. There's actually a movie called Good Luck, Chuck.
I think I've heard of it. It's an older movie.
It's an older movie. It's like a rom. It's like a rom-com. Yeah. And it's basically about how every woman that dates this guy, they break up, and then after they date him, they find the one, and then they go off and marry. And I think it's like a small town or something. So, like, obviously word spreads fast, and so all these women now want to just date him. So then after they date him, then they can go and get married and then have kids and start a family and everything. And it just reminds me so much of, like, this particular situation.
Scenario.
Yeah. That. But now, obviously, it's been a very long time since this happened, for the person that I know. And, looking back at it, obviously there was a disconnection between, they just weren't right for each other. Obviously, she wasn't giving him what he wanted.
Yeah.
And she thought that that's what she wanted from him. And so now looking back, obviously, I think they both kind of maybe quote unquote dodged a bullet there, because it just wasn't going to work out. Yeah. And then for some reason it just didn't work out for them.
And why have kids and bring that? Oh, that would have been even tougher.
Because obviously, she's at the age where she's ready to have kids.
Right. Forever 21.
And but I think he was like a little younger than her, so that had a lot to do with it, that he just wasn't prepared or mature enough to want to have kids. And then she goes and preps him and then there you go, he meets this other person, and then that happens.
Oh, that is so painful.
It's so heartbreaking.
That is so painful, because imagine you're in that mindset, and then that person leaves you, and you see them and they are living their best life, right? And you're over here like in shambles, broken pieces, all this, thinking like, why couldn't he do that for me? And then you do meet somebody, right? And then
it does mess with you, like, psychologically, because there was a time where she was like, why didn't he want me? Why couldn't he give me that? Why? It was just like a repetition of why. And it brought her self-esteem really low, and to the point where she just started, like, self-doubting herself and what she has to offer.
Self-doubting herself.
That's not the right word?
Just self-doubting.
Oh, just self-doubt.
Just lots of doubts.
Just lots of doubt to yourself. cállate pues.
I'm not gonna let it go, girl, because you call me out. But
Anyways.
yeah, the mind is such a, that's the thing. It's like, even though we can see, right, when we're not in that situation, if it happens to us, we automatically start thinking those thoughts, and the mind goes crazy, thinking of all these scenarios of shoulda, coulda, woulda, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Even though it's just as simple as he didn't want you, and you really actually probably didn't want him either. And sometimes it happens that way.
But when you want something so bad,
You want the thing.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter who it's with. It doesn't matter if you're compatible or not. It's just like you just want the marriage. You want the kids. You want to be a mom. That you don't really stop and think, like, is this person, like, is this relationship gonna last long? Is
this for that scenario?
Correct.
Yeah, you become so zeroed in on, like, I want to be married. It's like, oh, perfect. I have somebody to fit the puzzle, but it really, is that the person for you? Is he compatible for you? Like, do you guys want the same things? Are you going in the same direction? And then you invest so much time. It's the investment that gets us.
Well, that's what gets me is if, again, vice versa, if this is a man or a woman, because there's times where women are not ready for it, and it's the guy really doing all the work, and then they're ready for it and the woman isn't, right? So it could go both ways.
Absolutely.
So my question to these people who aren't ready but still stay in these relationships, why do you waste so much time of the other person?
It's so inconsiderate.
Like, why not just break it off? Like, if you know that this other person wants commitment, they want the marriage, they want the children, they want the white, the house with the white picket fence, why not just cut it off if that's not what you're looking for? And then that that's what they want.
Yeah.
So my question becomes,
why do you guys do that?
Why do you people do that? Why not just break it off?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I think, playing devil's advocate, I think I don't know if it applies for women, because I haven't thought that through right now, but for men, I feel like men are not confrontational, and they're not like about the drama, right? They're very like generally speaking. They're like, when they get comfortable, it's hard for them to really do anything about it. Like, most divorces are women filing, right? We fight for things. We want changes. We want this. We want that. And men, they stay. They don't file, right? Even if they're miserable.
Right.
Because it's cheaper to keep her. But so I feel like maybe for some men, it's just like, well, she's committed.
She's already
She's
here.
faithful.
Yeah.
She does all the wifey things, and I'm not going to fully invest in her. Why are you laughing, Jaime? Do we have a caller?
Lifeline?
But I feel like men in those situations are like, ay, pa qué voy a, hacer un desastre? I'm okay. We're not miserable. I don't, like, men are willing to settle more than women because we will do everything without the other person committing.
Yeah.
We'll still be fully invested.
Thinking, like you had previously said, thinking that, they'll change.
Eventually.
They'll change their mind. I could get him to, like, really want me and really love me.
Because
and blah,
if
blah, blah.
man was honest and communicated, you know what? I'm not actually going to give you 100% of myself, but things are not bad for me, so I'm going to stay because I'm selfish, and men are typically selfish when it comes to this kind of thing, because we women don't complain. We don't complain about staying. We do it with the preconceived notion that eventually something will click in him, and then he'll decide.
Then he's going to have, like, some kind of
epiphany.
Epiphany? Okay, just
epiphany. I said
you said epiphany. No, you said epiphany. The epiphany.
I was trying to beat you to it. They're going to have the realization that, oh my gosh, this woman is actually amazing. Yeah. She's for me. I'm going to do it all for her, right? But he actually just wasn't that into you.
Yeah.
I feel like in most cases, and I've heard firsthand from some men.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I won't give it to her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll have kids with the right woman.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't do that for this
Just
woman.
just
right.
anyone.
But they stay, and I feel like it's so messed up.
They
then
do.
don't be with her. But it's out of selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
They're willing to be there because they're having their cake.
Right.
And it just makes me so mad.
So I've said this before. So I've been married for a very long time, almost going on to 18 years, and just like any marriage, you go through your ups and downs.
Yeah.
So there was a period where my husband and I were going through a really rough time.
Right.
And him and I just weren't seeing eye to eye. And when I would try to get him to, do anything or get him to feel a certain way or whatever, we just weren't connecting.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically we had a conversation about it during our rough time, and he was just like, I just don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. He's like, you just can't make me do it.
Yeah.
When I feel like it,
mm-hmm.
I'll do it. You don't even have to ask me to do it. Or even if you ask me one time, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
And it was and it's not just like, hey, go throw out the trash. Hey,
right.
It's not stuff like that, right? It's more of like putting the effort into a relationship and stuff like that. Or, hey, how come you don't treat me this way? Or how come you don't do, I see my friends, like partners doing this, blah, blah, blah. Like, why aren't you like that with me?
Right.
And I remember that he was just like, it's just because, we were going through a really rough time.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I just don't.
No me sale,
no me nace hacerlo. Yeah. And I'm like, now, obviously, we're in a very healthy place in our marriage. And it's like, now he does those things without even being asked. Yeah. And obviously now we're a lot older, more mature. We've grown. Yeah. And so now looking back, I can now see like, okay, it's because he wasn't feeling it at the time.
And that's the thing about men. Mm-hmm. Different from women. They won't do it if they don't feel it.
Exactly.
They won't fake it.
Yeah.
They won't. Even just to keep the relationship, they won't do it. Women, we will do it without feeling it.
Yeah.
In hopes that we're going to get the result.
That you want.
And that's the thing that is so different about men and women is they are fully aware, consciously or subconsciously or not, that they will still get the result because women want that committed relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so we stay for a long period of time waiting for that man to get it. Obviously, we're the ones to leave. Right? And they're like, okay, well, she broke up with me. And that's another thing. Men won't break up with... Was your friend the one to leave or was he the one to leave?
Well, I think she technically had to move out. So, I mean, physically leaving, she had to be the one leaving. Yeah. But I don't recall if it was like who ended it. I think maybe it was mutual. I really don't remember. It was a really long time ago.
Yeah.
But... yeah, she had to be the one to kind of get out.
And that's the thing. I also feel like because we're the initiators, I feel like a lot of men, they do things or like they do things halfway, thinking like, okay, well, she'll get tired of me and then she'll leave me. So they don't have to be like the bad guy who was the one to leave her. And then we finally do leave and they're like, okay, phew.
Well, the other thing too that really kind of gets me and it irks me a little bit is the fact that because they were together for such a long time, when I say we, I mean like the family, we're also invested in that relationship, right?
Yes.
So, there's feelings that develop towards the other person. Right. We consider them, our family.
Yeah. You create bonds, friendships.
Exactly. Yeah. And, it gets really difficult to try to explain it to the kids, to the little ones. Like, well, why isn't so-and-so coming to the parties?
Especially after 7 years. That's
a
long time.
And so,
isn't that like in California, if you live together for 7 years, that's like you're married?
The domestic partnership or something like that?
Yeah.
Or something like that, yeah. But to me, it's like, well, if you're not in this, why are you conviviendo con toda la familia?
Right.
¿Por qué estás haciendo the most to like, por qué vienes a los cumpleaños? ¿Por qué vienes a para Navidad, para Thanksgiving? Like, ¿por qué haces todo eso si tú sabes
so
que tu corazón no está
Yeah.
En esa relación? You know, it
Yeah.
would be different if we all saw it, but she didn't. You know, it would be different if he wouldn't come to family events.
Yeah.
Or he wouldn't, you know, want to hang out with the family. But we literally did, like, he would come to everything.
As if he was going to stay forever.
As if he was gonna, as if he was gonna marry her. They were gonna have kids.
Ugh.
I mean, we would, you know, like, go play beach volleyball together. Just like, we would go to Universal Studios,
right,
like
the whole nine.
everything. Like, if you're literally about to marry this person, like, this is the one. And
because when you're not, you don't do those things. You keep your lives a little separate just in case.
Yeah.
We're not sure. We're not sure if it's gonna happen, you know. And I think we've these poor men, obviously it does happen to you guys too. But let's talk about the men. When women do this, since we are the women.
Okay.
I mean, I'm the kind of person, personally, I can't relate because I want to treat others the way that I would want to be treated. So I if I'm in because I want to be there, right? Nobody, when I'm out, I'm done, right? I'm not going to play games. But I feel like some women, we do this, we drag a man along because he's a nice guy. The nice guy syndrome, right? Who won't stick up for himself, who won't put his foot down, right? And they want it so bad. They're lonely. They need companionship. The nice guy. They're also putting it out way out there, right? They're buying the whole family if she has kids. If she has kids, they're buying the whole family the Disneyland trip and the ring and the, you know, I'm gonna build you a house and so she's like, it's comfortable. Yeah. Like, why not? I'd be dumb not to take advantage.
And that is so funny because I also had a friend who went through that. Another friend who went.
Tienes muchas amigas.
I have a lot of friends, right?
Starting to get a little jealous.
Who also went through that actually particular scenario where, because this other friend also went through that same situation that we previously talked about, where she pretty much prepped the guy for the next, for the next person. Different person, like different girl, but same situation. And in her previous relationship prior to the one where she prepped the guy, this other guy was giving it all to her. Yeah. Like all, like everything, like buying her, X amount of this, that, giving her everything, trying to do the mostest for her. Yeah. And and I think at that point it's a turnoff because I feel like as women, we kind of like to chase a little bit.
We do.
We
like the bad vibe. We do.
Nos gusta la mala vida, unfortunately. And when you have something like so too good easy. And it's just like, he's like head over heels for me. Yeah. I feel like that is...
We're turned off.
I think that's unattractive.
It is unattractive. Like, we want a little bit of the bad boy. We want him to be a little stoic. Yeah. Like, I want you, but...
Well, the reason it reminded me of that, of that, my friend and her ex, is because you said that you want a little bit of like a bad boy. They don't stand up for themselves, right? And this guy, he was such a nice guy. Super, super cool. Like, him and my husband would hang out all the, like, by themselves. Like they would call each other up and like, hey, let's go out. And they would go out like to clubs and blah, blah, blah. But
that breakup must have been hard for him too.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And this guy even proposed to my friend.
Oh, shit.
He wanted to marry her, and she was just like, "Es que like I just like he's too nice. Like he's too nice to me." And so yo pienso que if he would have been a little bit like if he would maybe treated her maybe like a little bit like an asshole,
Mm-hmm.
then I think maybe I would have walked her down the aisle. I would have been her, maid of honor.
Would have been a one. Oh,
But,
man.
Yeah, he gave her everything. He gave her todo. Like, I don't know if they lived together. I can't remember that far back. But, he was well off and he would provide whatever she needed. And he was just too nice of a guy.
Too nice.
And yo pienso que she wanted a little bit of a...
I feel like when it comes, like, there's two sides, right? It could be that we're toxic. And right, it could be that we're just toxic and we're so used to being in bad relationships, right? So we crave a little chaos because the chaos is exciting, right? But then
bien dramática, like bien telenovela.
Trátame mal. But on the other hand, when you're not as toxic and women naturally, we crave safety and masculinity. Mm-hmm. And when you're too nice as a man, it's not masculine. Yeah. When you're a little
because
bit
it forces a woman to be the masculine one.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And we women want, like, the bad boy represents a very strong man. Not that we want someone to actually treat us bad, but it's someone who's going to stand up for himself. Like, ooh, sexy. Like when you ask, like, hey, can we do this? And your husband tells you no, isn't it?
It's like,
ooh. Okay.
No. I will agree with that because my husband is very passive. Like, he's so chill. He's cool. Like, hey, I'm going to do this. Like, okay, whatever. But when he gets angry or when, like, he says, like, no to something or he stands up for himself, I'm like, dang. Where's that? Where you been? Like, it does kind of, like...
It ignites you. Yeah. It's because naturally we do crave that. As strong as women as we are, we want someone to be like, no. And it's like, ooh.
Not all the time.
Right. No me digas no all the time. Yeah, like just once in a while. Sprinkle it in there. Yeah.
So I do 100% agree with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I do feel like when...
There's got to be a balance.
Yeah.
Like, why can't... There's got to be like 50-50. Like, half of the time tell me no, half of the time tell me yes.
So basically, have opinions. Mm-hmm. Have your own opinions. Not that you have to be rude or condescending or belittling, but when a man has his own mind, his own opinions, he doesn't agree with everything you say, doesn't want to please you, isn't afraid to lose you, that's attractive. That is so attractive. It's very sexy. It's like, wow, he's a man, right? I can't tell him what to do. He's not a pushover.
There you go.
He's not a pushover.
That's the word.
Yeah. And so if that man would have had a little bit of a backbone, even if he would have been kind, right? We can't mistake having your own mind and being kind with rudeness, right? We're not looking for somebody rude, but I feel like in this world...
There is a difference.
It's been misconstrued. It's been... Like the lines have been rocked because we have gone through toxic experiences and we have mistaken that we want to be treated bad. That's why that saying "me gusta la mala vida" is a thing, but it's not that we want la mala vida. So we want someone who's gonna have opinions of their own. Be masculine if you're in danger.
Because it is very unattractive when like, you meet someone and they're just agreeing with everything that you like or everything that you're saying versus having an actual intellectual conversation where you guys could kind of go back and forth. Like, you know what?
You don't have to agree.
I see your point.
Right.
But I don't agree with you. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then you could, kind of go back and forth. Because then that keeps it interesting. That stimulates your mind.
Right.
And if you're just going to agree and be a yes man to everything, then that's going to totally be unattractive for a female or I think even a man.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is one of the things that I loved about my current relationship that was different. Most men, when you're younger, right? Because I was previously married, but before that, when you're young, when you're a teenager, everybody just says yes because they think that the other person just wants you to agree with everything.
Yeah.
And we don't, right? When you get older, you realize that you want a little challenge.
Yeah.
You want someone to have their own opinions. Yeah. And my partner and I right now, we're very different. We have very different opinions of things, and it is. I love that we don't have to agree on everything,
right? You don't
to get along,
Yeah.
or even like we stimulate each other's minds, and I'm like, wow, like I get to learn another perspective, and it's not like when you know who you are, it doesn't what's the word? Like it doesn't affect you. You're not like, oh, because when you're young, you're like, oh my gosh, this person doesn't think like me.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have the capacity to be challenged and still be like, oh, okay, respect somebody else's differences. And it's so attractive for a man to let you be yourself, right? A strong woman, and you respect that he has his own person, his own opinions, and he doesn't always say yes to you. It's like,
But that's the difference between, you know, dating when you're younger versus dating when you are in a mature.
Right.
And I wouldn't even say like age really has to do anything.
Right.
I just feel like if you are not mature enough or you don't have the mental capacity for a serious relationship, you should be able to pretty much tell up front whether or not, like, hey, if this is going to be a serious relationship, am I up for this? Like, because this could lead to marriage, this could lead to kids.
Right.
Am I ready for this?
Right.
And I
have that self-awareness.
I feel like if that's not your end goal, then, and the other person that you are in a relationship or you're going to be romantically involved with, if they want that and you don't, you need to just like get out because it's not fair.
It's not fair at all. No.
It's not fair.
Having that awareness to differentiate the difference between, am I just lonely and bored?
Yeah.
Or am I really looking for a partnership, a commitment? I'm going to put in the effort, right? And where am I? Am I this person or am I this person? Because if the man is just lonely or the woman is just lonely and bored, that's not fair to the person who's actually looking for those things.
Correct.
Because sometimes you confuse, oh, actually, I want to get married, but you really don't. You're not really ready for those things.
For that
you're
stuff.
not ready. You're just you're just lonely, and you need to do some self-reflecting because I feel, this is my personal opinion, that if you don't know how to enjoy your own company being alone, you are not ready to be in a relationship.
Correct. Yeah, 100%.
You're not.
I agree
You're
with
not
you.
ready because being in a relationship doesn't mean you lose yourself.
Correct.
You're still you alone. And so until you're able to comprehend that, then you're going to lose yourself. You're going to suck up the other person's energy. You're going to exhaust them because they're not there to entertain you.
Correct.
Like they're there to compliment each other.
It should be like two individuals just coexisting.
Yes.
Not like, hey, I need you. I need you. Like,
I can't live without you.
That is so
draining.
Tiring.
Yes, for the other person, especially when your obsession is, I want a family, I want kids, I'm getting older, or, you know, like you just become so obsessed. I don't personally know, but I've heard stories of people, they don't find their significant other until they're in their 40s, 50s, where they actually got to mature, live some life, and they're like, wow, I see things totally different. You know, it's like, I wasn't ready.
Like, good thing I didn't marry then.
Yes, that person would have been...
We probably would have been divorcing right now because my mindset is totally different.
Right, and then I would have had kids with that person, and I actually didn't really want to. I was alone, or I was dealing with XYZ. You know.
I also think that, you know, going back to my first example of the person that I knew that lived with a boyfriend and they ended up separating. So I've had this conversation with her. So it's not like I'm talking shit, you know, behind her back or anything that, because I have had this conversation with her. Right. And it makes sense. And what I've told her is, you need to understand that if it didn't work out, you also have to, again, she was, you know, there was a lot of self-doubt and there was after the breakup because like, oh, you know, why couldn't he give me that if he was able to give that to the next person? But what I told her was, you also have to think about, it's not just what he could offer you. It's also what you could offer him. Yeah. Because you're not supposed to just marry a man, you know, as a woman, thinking that they're going to rescue you from whatever hole you're in and then just live off of the guy. Like,
you're there to
nowadays,
there to fix you.
know, like if this was like back 30, 40, 50 years ago, back when men usually were the breadwinners and XYZ,
Because we didn't live in expensive California.
then it's a different
time.
Different time, right?
Different needs.
Today, you can't survive off of one income.
No.
Period.
No.
So even if he wanted to provide for you,
right,
I don't think he could.
Right.
Because
unless he's that 1%.
The normal, your average Joe
Right.
doesn't make, over the six figures.
Right.
You need that double income to be able to survive, to be able to at least live comfortably,
Yeah.
So I told her, as a way to make her feel better, and obviously there is some truth behind it, is like, don't just depend on the man, and don't just think like, well, what could he offer me? Like, you also have to think about like, these men are also thinking the same thing. Like, well, what can she add to my life?
Right.
What value is she going to add to me to make me want to marry her?
Right.
Because you can't just expect these men to come rescue you and take you out of the swamp, Fiona.
Right. Fiona. Gosh, I pictured the most grotesque green, like pimply ogre ever.
Mm-hmm.
That is very true.
So that was one very important thing that I had talked to her about, was like, you also need to give yourself value. And you need to be able to
bring something.
Again, going back to like, you're supposed to be two individuals who are going to complement each other, and they're going to become one. It's no longer the man is going to take over the woman. It's no longer like that.
Yeah.
So don't just, don't have that pobrecita mentality and be like, what is he going to offer me? What is he going to offer me? No, like, you also have to realize, as a woman, tú qué le vas a ofrecer a él también.
Yeah.
Él también quiere estabilidad.
Right.
Él también,
emotional stability.
Yeah, él también quiere una persona que, tiene su propia carrera, hace su propio dinero, tiene sus propias, hobbies.
Right.
They want also
no van a estar nomás ahí like needy.
Exactly.
Like, ay, dame atención, tell me I'm beautiful. Like, when you reach our age, like, men, they don't have the energy to just be doing that, or time. Life is exhausting. Men are going through a lot these days, emotionally, physically, at their works, whatever. And so then they come home and we're like needy.
Yeah.
So if we're not like there to also meet them halfway and not just be like, oh, it's all about me. Like, it's a you and
it's
me.
It's a two-way door.
Exactly.
Like,
it revolves.
It's gotta
ways.
It's gotta be a two-way street, right? You have to be able to give and take.
Right.
You can't just take and expect the world.
Right.
That
person is going to be empty.
Absolutely.
Empty, and then it gets to a point in that relationship when it's so one-sided, where that man is so drained, and then you're upset with him. Because you're not pouring out back. You're just like expecting.
Yeah.
And because if that person comes from another toxic relationship, or a relationship where her needs were met, and then she just has this huge expectation, this person is going to fix me. If you don't do the work by yourself, then you're going to mess up this next relationship.
Yeah.
Because no human being can fix another human being.
No.
That's work that you got to do on your own. And I feel like when we go into another relationship thinking that the problem was just that other person, and we don't see that, we play a huge role. Like, what did I do?
Yeah. You also have to take a step back and be like, okay, what did I F up on? Like, what could have I done better that could have changed the outcome of that relationship? Or
because going back to that pobrecita mentality, oh my God, I feel like that is messing up a lot of relationships. Because even though, yes, there are toxic relationships and both people are, generally, nobody is that pobrecita me. We do play a role.
You do.
We do.
You have the control of you. And here's the thing: you can only control yourself.
Yeah.
You cannot control the man. You cannot control not even your kids. Like when you have the kids.
Yep.
Can't
control them.
Up until when they're like 18, then of course you have to be able to control them kids.
Right.
But you also have to take self-responsibility for the lack of whatever you didn't bring to the table at the time frame of your relationship.
Yeah.
So, and going back to my girlfriend, I told her, like, men also want.
Yeah. They also have needs.
They also want that intelligence, and
Yeah.
and perhaps he didn't see a few. I know it sounds so messed up.
Yeah.
And as I was saying these things to her, I was like, man, that sounds like so messed up. But I obviously had to find the right words,
Right.
because you also have to be honest with them and
Absolutely.
and tell them, like, look,
because the next, va a seguir in the same pattern.
And something that I told her was, if the situation was reversed, okay, if it is what it is. Like, if the situation was reversed, where you had the stable job and then he didn't, or vice versa, like, ¿cómo tú te sentirías? Like, would you be still willing to put in so much effort into this relationship?
Yeah.
Versus not. Like, you knew that it wasn't going to end to anything.
Yeah.
You knew that he wasn't going to be a good dad. You knew that he wasn't going to be a good husband. Would you still have stayed that long?
Yeah.
So you kind of have to, like, flip the script a little bit. I
Absolutely.
had to do that with her.
And that's a good friend. That is a good friend, because you cannot face reality without somebody telling you the truth. And obviously, we're not going to see ourselves and tell ourselves that. Only somebody from the outside can really see that. And as painful as that is, the truth sets you free to actually not be so sentida, right? To actually heal and be like, okay, well, instead of being all in my feels, let's look at the facts. Yeah. Let's look at the facts. And because you can't grow on feelings, you can only grow on reality, on facts. And the truth is that sometimes we're licking our own wounds. We're not... Oh my gatito. Yeah. We're not willing to see, like, okay, let me put my big girl panties on and see, what did I actually do wrong? Was I actually bringing anything, or was I just there demanding? And we can be very demanding. And when we zero in on this one need that we have, we also become selfish. And we're like, oh, I'm actually not being very giving right now. I'm just thinking about myself. I'm just licking my wounds and my needs. And there's a whole nother adult on the other side that actually probably has them too. Yeah. And when you take that step back and you're able to see, you can resolve something, whether it's like, you know what, this person isn't for me and I'm not for this person. And that's okay. Because even though you can give that person everything they need, it's okay to not be right for that person. Yeah, totally. It's like you want to fit a square into a circle, a huevo. You just want to. And to be okay with being like, I give this person if I give my person this best, is this for me or not? And being okay with it, I feel like that's like such a huge problem. And that's why we stay in situations that are not for us. Yeah. Like, you know what? I actually don't like that. I don't really want this. Yeah. It's like, would I actually still want this if it was, Yeah. So, I mean, I think, going back to the very beginning where Anonymous asked, like, why do men, in her particular situation, is why do men stay in these long-term relationships knowing that they will not be able to provide, or it's not going to lead to marriage, it's not going to lead to having kids, it's not going to lead to the house with the white picket fence. Why do people stay when they know? Yeah. And I think, in conclusion and in summary and as a whole, I would say it's because don't just blame the other person. Yeah. Take a step back and see, well, did I meet that person halfway? And don't get me wrong. Yeah. Sometimes you could do everything right. You could have the good job, be the wifey material. Right. But sometimes it just doesn't click. And when it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be, no matter how hard you try. And so I feel like just being self-aware of, what are you bringing to the table instead of just focusing on the other person, then I think you'll have a little bit more clarity as to what went wrong in that situation. Yeah. And let it be a lesson, just learn from it. And if that person wasn't meant for you, then it just... And there's somebody who will be willing, and I think that's the thing you got to keep in mind. In that moment, it feels like the end of the world. There's only one fish, but there will be somebody who will do it for you. Yeah, exactly. It's like a blessing in disguise, I like to call it. Like you don't it hurts you at the moment. It hurts you. It kills you, and you feel like the world's gonna come to an end. But if you really,
peel the layers back, it's because there's something else waiting for you, and something better for you, something that's really going to click
Actually
with you.
for you.
Yeah. And so, don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And if it didn't happen, it didn't happen. And there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So I hope that you guys enjoyed today's talk. If you guys have any other questions, comments, or any topics that you guys would like to touch base on, feel free to send us a private message on our TikTok, on our YouTube, Instagram. On our Instagram. And thanks for watching, everybody. Bye. Bye.